Hello and welcome to the Crimson Stitchery, a video channel about making all things that are beautiful and useful. My name is Anushka and you can find me elsewhere online, on Ravelry, on Instagram as a Sour Telling. Show notes for this episode, as usual, can be found on the down bar below here on YouTube. And I just want to open this video by saying, how are you? I really hope that you are well, and I really hope I'm sending you the best wishes for your continued good physical and mental health. This video is 2 weeks late. It's overdue, and who would have ever predicted that we would be in the state of affairs that we currently are in. I'd like to thank you for tuning in, for watching my podcast, and I'd like to thank everybody who has reached out and asked me if I'm okay. Very thankfully, I'm in a position where no one I know has been infected with COVID-19, although a really good friend of mine is an NHS doctor and she does work in the hospital in the south, which was like, they admitted some of the first cases and she has admitted patients. And yeah, I'm going to save this kind of disaster chat, for want of a better word, for the end of the episode, for conversational threads, because I am aware that knitting and sewing and mending is a source of solace for a lot of people, and also that, you know, entertainment is actually quite important. It's good to keep on being hopeful and kind of keep in our routines. So the format of this video today is going to be that I'm just going to talk about everything that I've been making. As I said, this video is late. I was meant to release a video 2 weeks ago, and I've had a really full-on couple of weeks. I've had a lot of bad news. Let's just leave it there. I've had a lot of challenges in my professional life as well. So there's been a lot going on, and I am going to admit now that I'm finding things difficult. And the Crimson Stitchery is somewhere where, you know, it's an atmosphere, it's an online space and place, and at times a real life place where it's about positivity and kind of challenging ourselves and thinking differently. And at the moment I am really struggling with that. But as I said, quite a lot of viewers have checked in with me and have asked how I am, and I really appreciate that. And so making a video has been on my to-do list for quite some time, and I thought, I've just got to do it. I'm going to do it, and then it's done. And yeah, as I said, not going to dwell on that. So yeah, the format is that I'm going to just show you what I've been doing over the last month, since the last time I released a video on this channel was, and then we'll just get back into nonsense at the end of it. No, it's not nonsense, it's stressful stuff. So I'm just sitting down with a fresh cup of tea, because I've been drinking like top-ups of the same tea leaves in the same teapot all day, and it's really nice to treat yourself and give yourself some fresh tea leaves in a mug that I got. It's secondhand Arabia mug from Finland, really beautiful pottery. And I'm just gonna get on with it. So the thing that I want to talk about first is what's in my knitting basket, and there's actually quite a lot in my knitting basket, and there are additional bags of yarn. I've got 3 bags full here. Barbell Black Sheep, have you any wool? Yes, so yes, 3 bags full. I've got 3 bags full, and that is because gosh, everything pre kind of quarantine and isolation feels like a really long time ago now, but I had a deadline at the beginning of March, and knitting is something that I guess I use as procrastination, but also like as a relaxation, as a way to unwind, as a way to help me think. So I was doing a lot of knitting at the beginning of the month, and kind of nothing pretty much since the isolation stuff. But anyway, so I finished a cardigan. This is a cardigan that I started back in September completely on impulse. Just when you have something in your head, I've got to make that. And it was during the Crimson Whip-Along, which was our Knitalong endeavour from last year. Really successful endeavour, really great community endeavour. So thanks everyone who took part in that. And I was very naughty and I cast on something new, even when I knew I had to finish other stuff. But I decided that I wanted a summer cardigan because I was going to be traveling to Southeast Asia, but obviously I didn't finish it in time. So I made a version of Morganite by Karina Ferguson, which is quite an old pattern. And I made so many changes that, as usual, like most of my modifications mean that I'm barely following anything in the pattern at all. Firstly, you know, I added shaping, different types of waist shaping. I added pockets, really sweet little pockets there. It's very long. I changed the way that it buttons, because in the pattern it buttons at the top and opens down, kind of like this open collar portion of my cheongsam. And I did it the other way round. I wanted to start the button at the bust and button down, so it's kind of like a granddad cardigan, boyfriend cardigan. Why are cardigans gendered? I've got no idea. And yeah, and also I found the instructions for the yoke quite confusing. There really wasn't very much clarity at all, and I just kind of winged it. So it's like a bottom up raglan, and then you join it all together at the armpits, and then you knit the raglan yoke together going up. So yeah, that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour, really. I'll get up again. So it's very long, and I knit it in Rosarios Principe Real, which is a Portuguese blend of linen, silk and cotton. So it's Portuguese yarn. And I've used it before, and I used it to knit a t-shirt at a very tight gauge. So I went up a needle size this time, and it's gone really, really drapey. And kind of bags out and goes out of shape. So I felt like there wasn't really a middle ground with this yarn. Like, either it's a bit too loose and a bit too drapey as this, or you go down just one needle size and it's very thick and very heavy and tight, but you know, that's what it is. So it's a really nice yarn actually, and I'd really recommend it. And it's quite affordable in my opinion, although I can't off the top of my head remember how much this cardigan cost in total. I believe it was around £50, and I think that included like £10 worth of postage from Portugal to the UK. So yeah. And I have finished that. So it's not really warm enough for it yet, but it's definitely a summer cardigan. It's very breezy, slightly shapeless, very long. I've never knit anything this physically long in the body before. But I quite like the back yoke. If I get on with that, you can just about see, and it's matching my orange cheongsam pretty much. And it's the kind of thing that I think I'm not going to be too precious about it, because even if I wanted to, the fabric is so flowy and drapey and it expands, you know, there's no seams, so it's a bit unstable. So I'm going to treat it as a kind of wearing around the house, but also like a summer beach throw on. You know, I'll take it to the beach, I'll take it to swimming, and I just won't be too precious about it. But it's very, very comfortable, and the fabric that it creates is lovely. It's just, you know, it's not a tailored garment. It's loose and swingy, and that's the nature of things. Kind of surprising. I feel like cotton normally holds its shape a bit, but something about the blend, and it's not a very tightly plied yarn. I think that's part of it as well. But I do really recommend the yarn. It's got this look, it's kind of soft, but it's got a tiny bit of toothiness to it as well. So definitely good for people who have, you know, wool allergies, but also just good for summer garments in general. So yeah, that was Rosarios Principe Real. The next thing I've almost finished and I need to put in the post is my baby jumper, which is the flax sweater from Tin Can Knits that I've done in a striped hand dye that was gifted to me by Emma. Thank you so much, Emma. It's Emma's hand dyed merino DK yarn, very, very plump DK. And yeah, did a stripe. Texted the mother, she's fine, she's not given birth, and her Viva has been postponed. She's a colleague that I know through my PhD consortium, who is a folklorist, and yeah. So that needs to have buttons sewn on. Thank you so much to everybody who weighed in. I think that was one of my most commented videos, last video, when I asked should I sew buttons on the baby cardigan or let the mother sew them on, and everybody said sew the buttons on yourself. Honestly, it was almost like as if it was something controversial because I was getting so much feedback from it. My phone kept pinging, sew the buttons, sew the buttons. So I'm gonna sew the buttons, don't worry, and then I'll put it in the post while I still can, while the post office is still open, and then she should receive that. Really need to do that. And hopefully I'll be able to film a tutorial for sewing on the buttons. So thanks so much to everyone who expressed interest in that. So yeah, that's really lovely. That actually came off the needles quite a while ago. And oh yeah, this cardigan actually came off the needles quite a while ago too. And I was putting off sewing on the ends and sewing on buttons. And these are the buttons that I used. They're a pretty good match for the cardigan. They're slightly more red than the actual cardigan, which has got more orange tones in it. But they are vintage plastic buttons, and they're really very delightful. They've got like this cut plastic kind of triangular shape. So and these were like a dead stock card of buttons, and are like sewn on. Just really nice addition to that. So yeah, cracked on with that. So yeah, 2 finished objects, which is quite a lot. And then let's go to what I've been knitting on. Well, this is crochet. This is my eclectic jumper or sweater. It's currently inside out because I started seaming it. So I've done the whole body and I changed it to crochet the bottom half of the body in the round because I thought, why would I add in extra ends to sew in if I can possibly help it? So I did the body in the round, and then when it came to the kind of yoke area above the bust, then I had to split and do those separately. So it means that the crochet stitches are like the wrong side on the yoke, like they're changing, but you barely notice, and it's so busy. And then I finished the first sleeve, which, as I mentioned last time, I added some shaping in, which you can just about glimpse, but it's a bit hard, but you can kind of see it there. It's bigger here, and there are some decreases, and it's smaller up here, and that's something that I added in. It wasn't in the pattern, and I'm really glad that I did that because it means that the shaping is just that little bit more sophisticated and not so bulky and blocky when it's on me. So yeah, I sewed that one arm in, well I crocheted it in, and then I started, you can see I've got ends here, I've got ends here, and there's a portion in the middle where I don't have any ends. So I've just started whipping those ends in, and I've got to do one more sleeve. And I was a bit enthusiastic either with measuring myself or the gauge, I'm not quite sure, and I really should have gone up a size in this garment and done a size a bit bigger. So as it stands, it's definitely more of a top, like a really heavy woolly top, than it is a jumper or, you know, an over kind of garment, but it looks quite nice. There's ease in it, and yeah, it's definitely going to be a lot tighter by the end of this isolation quarantine period. Let me tell you that it's gonna get tighter. But I really love this. It's kind of mad. In my part-time job as a piano teacher, I work with young children quite a lot, and it's nice to be able to dress up for them. It cheers me up. It's nice to be able to dress up for kind of primary school aged kids. I think I felt a bit inspired by one of my, I think she's 6 years old, one of my 6-year-olds who like arrived for her piano lesson a few weeks ago in what I can only describe as a ball gown. It's like a beautiful dress and like a matching beautiful jumper, not a hand knitted one, like a short foot one, but it was like all covered in sequins and like fringes and pom-poms, and there was so much going on, and all different colours as well, and I thought, oh, that's really great. And yeah, just as a side note, I am kind of a bit dressed up today. I've been wearing cheongsams the last couple of days because I've been doing remote teaching through conferencing apps, and I just thought I normally look so dull because I have to dress quite practically because I cycle to work, and from experience, you know, when I first started cycling, I would wear like vintage dresses, really nice clothes all the time, and they would get stuck in the bike chain, they'd get chewed up in the bike wheel, it was dangerous, they've ripped, they got grease all over them, and over the years I've just given up. So I kind of thought, oh, I'm going to be at home, so I'm going to dress up for it. So yeah, it's kind of one small solace amongst all of this stuff. And I really don't want to make light of how difficult the situation is for people who are much more directly affected by the virus, either in terms of their health, that of their families, or their income. I know a lot of people who are in 0 hours contracts. Yeah, my background is in the theatre. My partner works in the theatre industry, and we know a lot of people who are basically sitting at home with absolutely no work because theatres and bars have been closed down. So that is really tough. So I don't want to make light of it, and to be honest with you, the whole thing just makes me feel awful. But what I would really like to know is what is giving you solace in this moment, even if you're not watching it immediately after being released in kind of what are we on, March the 25th 2020. Even if you're watching it at a later date, write me a comment and let me know what is bringing you a little bit of happiness. What are you finding a little bit of joy in this moment? Because for me, I've got to admit, it is not knitting. It has been comfort eating, exercise, which is getting more and more and more limited in terms of what we can do, just kind of moving around, movement, and yeah, comfort eating. Did I already say that? And dressing up. So please let me know what is bringing you solace, what is bringing you a little bit of joy in this difficult moment. So continuing on, just reaching for my other knitting project, which I haven't done loads of, but I'm still doing my set of Christmas socks, and this is one that I received in a swap as part of Stashless 2020, which I forgot to mention, but I'm running the Stashless 2020 endeavour, which is a year-long knit-along to work through your stash. Most of my stash is currently on the sofa right now, and there's some other videos that I've made to do with that as well, and there are chatter threads over on Ravelry, and there's a hashtag on Instagram, so do join in on that at the moment. Several people have commented up something along the lines of, aren't we so lucky to have our stash at this point when it's difficult to go out to social events and do shopping, although, you know, there are some places still doing delivery, and like other people have said, oh, this is a great opportunity to work through the stash and all of the rest of it. So that's there if you would like access to it. And ooh, look at what I've just pulled out of my knitting bag. You can tell that it's just been shoved away for quite some time. So if I just try and extricate this without taking stitches off the needle, it's quite hard. Okay, so I've done the first sock. The toe needs to be grafted together. I think I did this when I was at a residential training course a few weeks ago. I think I finished that then. That's why I didn't graft the toe, because I didn't have a yarn needle with me in my travel bag. So yeah, that's that. And it's okay. It's weird because this is the West Yorkshire Spinners Christmas colourway from a few years ago, and they do one every year. And this one is Hollyberry, I think. No. Jingle Bells? This one's Jingle Bells or something like that. And this was the colourway that I wanted the most, and now that I've knit it up, it's the one that I like the least. So I've knit, in previous episodes you'll have seen me knit through Fairy Lights and Hollyberry, and I really like those, but this one, it just seems a little bit garish, and I think it's because the red stripe in the yarn, it's actually an orange, as opposed to a true red. And the contrast yarn that I've used for the cuffs, toes and the heels is a true red, that's separate, but this is actually an orange, and it just reminded me of like an Italian flag or an Irish flag, or insalata tricolore, which is tomato, mozzarella and basil. So yeah, it just seemed like I was at an Italian restaurant, knitting an Italian restaurant, as opposed to a Christmassy kind of sock. But I'm persevering anyway. I don't need any socks. Being at home and like not wearing a pair of socks necessarily every day has really revealed that my sock drawer is at peak. So my sock drawer is only about it's like a square foot or 30 by 30 centimeters. It's not very big at all, and it's full up. So it might end up being a Christmas gift. I know quite a lot of people who are size 39 or UK size 6. So yeah, it might go to someone else. But yes, I will at some point I'll get back to that. And then before I kind of stopped knitting, the last thing I was doing was basically for Stashless 2020, every 2 months we've got an additional themed knit-along going on. So overall the theme is to knit from our stash and reduce it and put less in and take more out, knit more out. And then every 2 months I've come up with a with like a themed goal. Well, it's not that I came up with it on my own, we came up with it in terms of the community. And the theme for March and April was double up. So it's kind of the idea that you can, just bringing my 3 bags full over across to me, we'll be able to knit up even more of our stash. So either holding yarn double to make it thicker, heavier weight, or marling it, holding 2 different colours double, or using a technique like brioche. Personally, I don't actually know what that is. People have been talking about brioche knitting for years. I've got no idea what that really means, but someone told me that that's holding 2 yarns double, so I added that to the list. And yeah, there's like other techniques like marlisle. Yeah, I guess kind of stranded colour work if you want to count that. But as always, I'm pretty free and easy, and I'm not going to tell anyone off for breaking the rules, but what I decided to do was to knit a, oh, where has it gone? I've got so much yarn, I'm now like pinned in by yarn. I decided to knit a hat because I've always wanted to knit one, like a full hat. I've knit a half hat before out of Shetland yarn, and a hat is like a Shetland, traditional Shetland, like blanket, shawl, wrap around, baby blanket, kind of your generic piece of cloth that can be used for loads of different purposes. And so the tradition of them is to have like a garter square in the middle, then you pick up stitches around the outside and you knit a border. So I'm doing a kind of vaguely-ish traditional thing, and I wanted it to be quite big. So here is my central square that I'm doing on the bias from corner to corner. And I'm using 5.5mm needles. It's pretty big. It will end up being kind of like a generous lap blanket size, and I'm using all of those randoms and unplanned skeins from my stash that have kind of been put into the naughty corner. So the first half of the square is like light grey wool and a alpaca and silk medium grey, and then I switched and I kept the light grey wool and I held a more charcoal black dark grey fuzzy wool, like a woolen spun one. So they've got all different textures, and hopefully I'll have enough of this combination to do the kind of other half of the triangle, but if not, I will just split it at approximately like 3/4 in and then maybe go darker, I think, go even darker. We'll see. So that is that, and then I'm not going to do myself the disservice of taking out all of the yarns, but I'll just let you glimpse the kind of colour scheme. So it's all turquoise, aquas, and burgundies, which again, if you've watched all my videos, if you've seen my decluttering, tidying up the stash video, you'll have seen the kind of colours that I'm into. And then just to give you an idea, like I'm literally using everything I can. So this is actually nice, really nice wool, like not cheap wool, but I don't, I had a plan for it, the plan went awry, and I've just decided to use it as opposed to save it. Like, what am I saving it for? I'm just going to put it in the blanket, whatever. If I end up regretting it and thinking, oh, I wish I still had that yarn, I'll just order some more for a specific project and like use it up for that. I've got odds and ends, like tiny little bits that I'm shoving in, and I've got old swatches that I'm unraveling. So yeah, getting rid of some old swatches, that's actually quite handy, especially in instances where I've knit like 3 swatches out of the same yarn to test out different needle sizes and different patterns. So I'm putting those to use. Yeah, I think that is that really. So let's get all of the wool off me before I start having like a shortness of breath, like semi-panic attack thing. Take a deep breath, get all the yarn, stop piling onto me, and Lastly, before I move out of knitting, I want to talk about the Sagittate cowl. So this is my new knitting pattern that I released, I believe it was last episode. Time is flying. And it was in a collaboration with the Urban Pearl yarns, who's Layla. And yeah, she dyed up this fantastic hot pink shade of yarn for me, and it was shown on Ravel. And then since then, there is a Knitalong launching for this pattern, which is being hosted by Fennel and Fibre. I'll put the information on the screen now. Fennel and Fibre, Fibre spelled the American way, E-R, not R-E. R-E is the British way. And yes, Fennel and Fibre, who on Ravelry, her username is Mesa Mendoza, and I have offered a discount code for this pattern, which is only valid for a few more days. So if you're interested in knitting along with someone, Fennel and Fibre, Mesa Mendoza, has organised a lovely group of people, and yeah, I recommend that you check that out and follow along if you're interested in knitting along Sagittate in good company. So there will be links for that below here on the video, so do check her out if you haven't done already. All right, so that is all of the knitting, and then I want to move on to mending. And a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people say like, oh, now's a great time to attend to our wardrobe at home and do a lot of mending, but I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to dwell on that for now, but this is a pair of socks that I mended a while ago, and the bottom of the heel had totally worn through. And so what I did was, I couldn't be bothered to cut out the heel and completely reknit it. And it was really important that the heel still remained flexible, so I didn't want to do any darning, because when you do darning, in my opinion, it's best suited to very small areas of knitted fabric, or just carry out darning on woven fabric. But if you need a larger area of knitted fabric, or anywhere that's going to get kind of a lot of abrasion and wear, or anywhere that's going to have to stretch around different contours, i.e. a heel, you know, it's not just a flat piece of fabric, it's going onto different planes, then you really want to make sure that you preserve the integrity of the knitted fabric. So I did a knitted patch, so that was pretty easy. I picked up along the horizontal, and then I just did some decreases up to the top to shape it in approximation of the shape of the heel. It wasn't exactly the same size, but it was almost the same size, so that was good enough as far as I was concerned. And then I cast it off, and I used that thread, the end of the thread, to just whip stitch it down. And then I did the other side, and I didn't have the same colour yarn for mending, so I just did as best I could. This one, hopefully you can see, is like a more variegated one, and also like the shape is different. It's not perfect, they're not a pair, but they strengthen the sock. And I just left the inside. You're probably not going to be able to see this. To be honest with you, the reason I haven't done more mending tutorials is because I don't do the really colourful visible mending. I actually love the way it looks, I really like it, but it's just not my jam. And a lot of my knitwear is kind of neutrals. It's all in neutrals, which means that it's really dark. So I kind of have to wait for the opportune moment for like a light coloured item to come along that I can mend that's going to be captured well on camera, because it's normally too dark or it's too acid bright, like, you know, this kind of colour. So yeah, we'll get there in the end. So yeah, I don't know if you can see. Oh, you can see on this one ish, can you see the mend is poking through? This is the wrong side, you can see some of it. So that's the hole, and I haven't done anything at all to the hole. I'm just leaving it be. I'm not tacking it down, I'm not cutting it away or patching it on the wrong side. I'm literally just leaving it be. It may wear away a little bit more, or more likely it will wear away but then felt onto the patch which is covering it up. So it will just basically sort itself out. So that is my mending, so I can shove those back in the sock drawer. Next, I want to talk about a tiny bit of sewing. I'm hoping that I will be able to do a little bit more sewing in the near future, and that is because I now have set up in my apartment a small study area just for myself. So I normally work in a communal space at a shared desk, and now I've got my own space, and I'm hoping that at some point, maybe over the weekend, I'll be able to get my sewing machine set up, and that will be really pleasant. That's something that I've not had access to in quite a few years now. So what have I been sewing? Well, it's in my handy little pocket. Handkerchiefs. A few weeks ago I had a conversation with my friend which went along the lines of, what are handkerchiefs for? What do you do with handkerchiefs? How are you meant to use them? And we agreed that handkerchiefs were for, you know, tucking into a pocket. We agreed that they were for, you know, waving goodbye at train stations and offering to damsels in distress, and that they were maybe a bit unhygienic. But I decided to sew up a few handkerchiefs because it's hay fever season and I cycle, or I used to cycle before we weren't allowed to go outside more than once a day, and you know, grossness warning here basically, but anyone that has either cycled, had hay fever, or ever been around a child will just find this normal. Basically, when you cycle, when you stop cycling, like all of the water that was in your body kind of starts coming out through all orifices, and the same with hay fever. And it's not dirty, it's like a histamine reaction with hay fever, at least. It's not because you've got like a cold or flu, it's literally just water in your body. And I just end up going through like so many tissues, and it was a big waste, and they were being sold out in the shops. So I decided to do the environmentally friendly thing and sew up some handkerchiefs, and I have made up a couple, and I just put them in this little pot, and I have put that pot next to a box of tissues, and I've got some more stashed away near the front door so I can just grab one and then go. And then yeah, I use it when I get off my bike and a bit sweaty. I use it to pat myself down, and then when I get home I empty my pockets and then I just shove it straight into the washing machine. So I haven't used the hankies for like an actual flu, in which I would obviously use paper tissues and dispose of them responsibly, but yeah, it's just for those situations where you find yourself getting a little bit damp and you don't want to keep like using up whole boxes of paper tissues. And my neighbours are being really noisy. Sorry, hopefully that's not picking up on camera, but I can hear it in the room, put it that way. It's like they're in the room with me. Anyway, what was I saying? Yes, I have loads of like old quilting cotton, and some of it's really soft, high quality, high thread count, like cotton lawn, kind of like Liberty kind of cottons, that sort of thing. But not necessarily actually Liberties, but yeah, just like a mixture of sort of vintage quilting cottons from a relative's clear out of their ex-hobbies a few years ago. So yeah, I've been sewing that, and I'll just show you the fabrics I've got, and I'm going to make a whole bunch of them in these particular fabrics, which are like, this is kind of like cream rose hips with orange blobs, and then this is like a kind of very Laura Ashley-esque kind of country floral scene. And I've gone for these because I wouldn't want like a garment or something, you know, I like them but I don't like them that much, so it's okay for me to associate the fabrics with blowing my nose. Because I've got so many of these cottons and I use a lot of them for making little bags and different things to have around the house, so I don't want to accidentally grab the wrong item, so I'm doing my best to kind of associate particular prints with handkerchiefs, if that makes sense. So all I did was cut out a square literally and did a roll hem, pressed it down and then sewed it on the sewing machine. It's a bit tedious, it's not time consuming or difficult, it's just tedious, and I've got a whole bunch more cut out, and I need many more because yeah, now that I've kind of got into it, it still feels quaint and weird, but so much about this stuff has been about like adapting to the fact that our modern, well, our contemporary way of life is so dependent on consumption in more ways than one. Like, you could just have one scrap of fabric in your pocket and just wash it out every day. That's a handkerchief. But you know, that's not what we're used to doing. We're used to buying boxes of tissues again and again and again. And it's like, it's this planned obsolescence which permeates almost every angle of our lives today. And, you know, this sort of panic buying and things not being available in shops has really thrown that into relief. Yeah, basically. So handkerchiefs are what I have been sewing. And on that note, let's just move into, oh, before we finish, Larder Life. So last time I showed you that I was growing a sourdough starter, and that has been successful. And thank you so much again to everybody who has weighed in and has given me suggestions and tips and people to follow and people that have like messaged me offering to give me advice. That is so sweet. The best advice I've got to say that I've got is from Sourdough Knits. She's got her own nitty makey podcast, and when I made my first loaf, my bread was tasty but it was really heavy, and she gave me this great advice which was simply, you just need to keep going and keep feeding your starter, and as it gets older it will get more potent and more powerful, and my subsequent loaves have been a lot better. So I thought that was great advice, and something that I wish to pass on, that if you make your first sourdough loaf and it's really like heavy and a bit claggy, it's probably just because the starter, you know, isn't old enough. It's still just a bit too young, so just keep going. And at this point I have made, I'm on my 8th loaf, I think. I've been doing about 2 a week, given some away. My current loaf, I just made it this morning and I actually don't like it very much, and that is because my partner asked me to put dried herbs in it, so it's come out green. I put thyme and rosemary in it, which sounds like it would be a recipe for success, but I don't love it. He likes it, but I'm not even going to show it to you because it doesn't look very nice, but he really likes it. And I've put it, I'm storing them in these cloth bags, again something that I myself made, which I'm hoping, you know, once I get my sewing machine space set up and I've got these tutorials I really want to show you guys, I'm hoping to share with you the method of making these Azura Bukuro bags. It's very easy, but anyway, it's a fun thing to do. And then I'm following the recipes on Zero Waste Chef's blog, and I make crackers with a lot of the discard. And now that flour is pretty much sold out of most of the shops, let me tell you, it's really nice to have a pantry and just feel like I can do things myself and not feel reliant on like Unilever or, you know, whatever brand it is that owns all of these snack foods basically. But, you know, all I need is flour, water, salt, my hands, you know, maybe a bit of fat, either oil or butter, and I can put loads of stuff together. So yeah, let's just move into conversational threads, which is the last one. And I don't have anything particularly poetic for you, but I just thought I'd give you a little catch up on my life. As I said, I'm fine, but I'm not fine mentally. I'm feeling the stress. This is, we're now in the 2nd week that we've been in isolation, because on Monday the 16th, all of the theatres shut down and my university moved to online teaching. So the 2 of us have been at home now together for 10 days. I'm really lucky in that we have a garden, you know, that's been fantastic, because the flat is 40 square meters. In the 1st week of our isolation, we did go out like nearly every day. I was still teaching, I was still going out, but now in the 2nd week that is all shut down. Apparently we're allowed to go out once a day for exercise. How would they know otherwise? I've got no idea. The whole thing's really bizarre, and definitely some people are not taking it seriously enough. And to be honest with you, like, we're not even at the eye of the storm. Things are just beginning, and I think having a really good friend who's an NHS doctor and has like been on conference calls every day, even when she herself was placed in quarantine, like she was, you know, removed from work. They said get out of the hospital at one point because she had a cough. She didn't have it, but she had a cough, and kind of hearing about it like directly as it's been experienced made me realise what a discrepancy there is between what's actually happening in hospitals and homes and what's being reported in the media. There's a big difference, and again, like I said at the beginning, I really don't want to make light of the situation, of the fact that people are dying and death is affecting people on this massive scale. You know, it keeps being compared to the Spanish flu of 1918. So it's been like 100 years basically since like we've had this global pandemic. I'm not an expert at all in medical history, so I'm showing my ignorance here, but I've never, you know, I've been fortunate enough not to have ever lived in a war zone, and this is really, really difficult. And we're also in this situation, unprecedented situation, where like the internet is still running for now until it goes the way of toilet paper. I'm like waiting for the internet to go the way of toilet paper. It's just a matter of time. And so it's like I'm being told by the university, because I'm a PhD student, I'm just being told like business as normal, we're moving to online teaching, just do conference calling and look at e-resources and just get on with it. And I just have felt like actually I can't, and I feel like I'm being framed as like self-indulgent because I'm unable to stick to a routine and unable to just carry on and unable to just act as normal. But I am finding this really, really difficult, and you know, on various different levels. I am currently wearing a cheongsam because the amount of anti-Chinese, let's just call it for what it is, racism that I have heard is quite frankly disgusting. I have also like heard of a lot of teenagers and young people who prior to the schools closing were saying that they were afraid to go outside and they were afraid of going to school, not because they were afraid of getting the illness, getting the virus, but because they were afraid of being attacked and verbally abused, which is just absolutely horrific. Like, it's bad enough that you have to worry about getting sick without being worried about being targeted for something that it's not even anything to do with you or your fault. And I think that it's really important not to gloss over the fact that this global illness has led to serious like xenophobia, for want of a better word, and quite frankly anti-Chinese sentiment that is not helping anyone at all. Stop it with the Chinese conspiracy theories. Like, I've got my own conspiracy theories that I'm not going to discuss on my podcast because I don't believe in spreading fake news. But there's that. So I've also mentioned that I had a lot of deadlines. Some of those went well. I have also been, quite frankly, for want of a better term, screwed over by quite a large company. I'm not going to name and shame them at this moment, but all I'm going to say for now is companies that pretend to be diverse and inclusive, you know, a lot of the time it's about what's facing the public, it's about what the public is consuming in their marketing. So it's about Instagram profiles and Twitter wars, winning Twitter wars, public statements. Public statements don't mean anything when you actually start to interrogate the way that companies are run from the inside. So as I said, I'm not going to go into details, but I have been treated very, very badly by a knitting industry company. I'm not going to say who. I might talk about it in the future, but I am very upset. And yeah, so stuff going at home. Like, I've had a lot of family issues to deal with. It's been a really tough couple of weeks. So I've not been doing any knitting, and I think that's all of this is just to say, you know, I'm wearing my heart on my sleeve a little bit without giving you full details. But when I go on social media, you know, between the panic, the other discourse that I'm seeing is like, this is the opportunity to be creative. Staying at home and like not commuting gives us extra time in our day. What are we going to do with all of this extra time? Let's like work on all of these extra hobbies. And I don't even have kids, so I can't even imagine quite how difficult this is for parents who are working full-time from home and homeschooling, or like panicking about not having an income and homeschooling. Like, I can't even imagine. But I don't even have kids, and I just feel like I'm busier than ever. I'm really stressed, and no, I am not writing King Lear, and I'm not painting a masterpiece, and I am not even knitting very much, because for me, you know, it sort of feels like it's just like another extra pressure that's being added onto us through social media, like the pressure to be amazingly creative. And you know, what I found solace in is movement and exercise, because it's really difficult being you know, in one place, and then what we're going to do when we're not even allowed to go out to jog and we have to apply for a permit. So all of this has been a bit fraught, and I'm not going to apologise, because that is the way that things are, and I kind of feel like I wanted to just admit that things are really difficult for me. And even though I'm really fortunate because I am well, physically well, and yeah, if you are not well, then I really hope that you find a way to get the treatment that you need. Let's all take a collective deep breath and just keep doing the best that we can in kind of accepting that this is the situation that we're in now and adapting to it. Yeah, I've got to say that in the first few months of like this pandemic spreading, I was pretty jovial, I was pretty upbeat, and I think just coming out of the month that I've had with all of the deadlines, all of the stress, all of the issues, being screwed over by a company, just everything all together, and then suddenly to be here, it has felt like quite a lot to take in, and I'm not my usual pragmatic, cynical, questioning, upbeat self at all. And if you are finding it difficult, then you are not alone. You are not alone at all. So I'm just going to sign off by saying again, thank you for watching, thank you for keeping in touch and getting in touch with me and commenting. Let me know the thing that is working for you, the thing that is working for you, not what people are telling you to do, what you are actually doing that is working. For me, it's comfort eating, bread and butter. And stay well, stay positive, stay in touch, and I hope to be speaking to you again soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.